A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt stood on a hill in Turkey and saw something impossible. He saw stones. Not just any stones. These were the tips of a structure 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. Think about that for a moment. 6 millennia before the first pyramids, and it was built by people who shouldn't have been able to build anything at all. The site is Göbekli Tepe. Carbon dating places its oldest layers at 9,500 BC. This single discovery shatters the official timeline of human civilization. The story we've always been told is simple. First came agriculture, then cities, then complex religion and art. Göbekli Tepe turns that story on its head. Here, in this remote spot, hunter-gatherers, people who supposedly lived hand-to-mouth, erected the world's first temple. And what a temple it is! You are looking at rings of massive T-shaped pillars, some standing 18 feet tall. They weigh up to 50 tons each. Yes, you heard that right, 50 tons. That's the weight of 7 adult elephants. Quarrying these monoliths from a nearby limestone plateau and moving them hundreds of yards, without wheels, without domesticated animals, would have required a huge, coordinated workforce. Hundreds of people, all organized, housed, and fed. But archaeologists have found no signs of a permanent settlement here. No evidence of farming. No houses. Just this colossal structure. The pillars are covered in stunningly detailed carvings. Scorpions, vultures, spiders, and strange, headless human figures. These weren't decorations. Many researchers now believe this was a celestial observatory, a machine of stone and sky built to track the stars and mark the seasons. A social machine that brought scattered tribes together for ritual. But here is the part that nobody can explain. Around 8000 BC, after 1,500 years of use, the builders did something that defies all logic. They deliberately buried it. They backfilled the entire site with millions of cubic feet of earth, stone chippings, and animal bones. It was an effort almost as monumental as its construction. This wasn't an act of destruction. It was an act of preservation, an entombment. Why would a culture spend generations a wonder of the world only to spend just as long meticulously hiding it? It wasn't abandoned to the sands of time. It was intentionally erased. The question isn't just how they built it. The real question is, what were they so afraid of that they had to bury it forever? The answer lies not in fear, but perhaps in a profound understanding of cycles. Think about what that means. For generations, they carved, lifted, and positioned stones weighing up to 50 tons. Then, without warning, they buried their sacred site. Not a single stone was broken. This was not destruction. It was a deliberate act. Professor Klaus Schmidt, the German archaeologist who first identified the site in 1994, always maintained that Göbekli Tepe was a sanctuary. He spent 2 decades uncovering its secrets. He discovered that the site was not just one temple, but multiple rings, built one after another. Each new ring seemed to be an upgrade, a more refined version of the last. And here's where it gets interesting. After each cycle of construction and use, the older structures were carefully covered. It was a ritualistic burial. Then, a new, smaller, and less sophisticated structure was built on top. This pattern repeated for 1,500 years. Why would a society capable of such monumental engineering regress in its techniques? What forces were at play? Mainstream archaeology struggles with this. The official narrative suggests a linear progression of human development. Hunter-gatherers, then farmers, then cities. Göbekli Tepe challenges this. It shows complex social organization and monumental architecture before widespread agriculture. It forces us to reconsider everything. Consider the carvings on the pillars. Scorpions, vultures, spiders. These are not random images. They are symbols. Many researchers, including Dr. Graham Hancock, propose these symbols represent constellations. They believe Göbekli Tepe functioned as a sophisticated celestial calendar. Imagine a night sky. Thousands of years ago, without light pollution. Every star, every planet, a beacon. This wasn't just a temple, it was a cosmic clock. For these ancient people, understanding the heavens was paramount. It dictated their lives, their migrations, their very survival. But what were they tracking? What event was so significant it demanded such an elaborate, enduring monument? In 2017, a team from the University of Edinburgh published a paper suggesting the carvings on Pillar 43, known as the Vulture Stone, depict a comet impact. They correlated the animal symbols with constellations and found a match for a date around 10,950 BC. This date aligns with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This was a period of sudden, dramatic climate cooling, a miniature ice age. Think about what that means. A cataclysmic event, a comet striking Earth, causing widespread devastation. The builders of Göbekli Tepe might have been witnesses to this cosmic event, or perhaps their ancestors were. And they built this site as a warning, a permanent record. They didn't just tell stories, they etched them in stone, for millennia. The official story of human history often overlooks such possibilities. It prefers a neat, tidy progression. But reality is rarely so simple. The act of burying Göbekli Tepe, layer by layer, over centuries, suggests a profound respect for its purpose. It was not discarded, it was preserved, as if waiting for a future generation to uncover its message. And now, we have. But what if the message isn't just about a past event? What if it's a warning for our future? What if the cycles they understood so deeply are still in motion, waiting to repeat? The idea that Göbekli Tepe's builders possessed knowledge of cosmic events, perhaps even predicting them, challenges every textbook. Mainstream science often dismisses such claims as speculation. But here's the thing. The evidence is carved in stone. You see the intricate patterns on Pillar 43, the so-called Vulture Stone. Dr. Martin Sweatman and his team from the University of Edinburgh analyzed these carvings. They didn't just see animals, they saw constellations, specific star patterns. This is not just art, it is a precise astronomical map. Think about what that means. A map of the sky, frozen in time, depicting a catastrophic event. An event that aligns perfectly with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. A period of global cooling around 10,950 BC. This wasn't some localized incident. This was a worldwide climate shift. The Earth changed, and these people witnessed it, or their ancestors did. They remembered. They built this monumental complex to record it, to warn future generations. But what if the warning wasn't just about a comet? What if it was about something far more insidious? Something that required not just memory, but a ritualistic burial? The official narrative suggests a simple hunter-gatherer society. No cities, no writing, just basic survival. Yet these simple people quarried, moved, and erected 50-ton megaliths. Without metal tools, without wheels, without domesticated animals. This feat alone suggests a level of organization and engineering knowledge that defies our understanding of the period. How did they achieve it? Nobody has a truly satisfactory answer. The sheer scale of the labor involved is staggering. Imagine hundreds of people, perhaps thousands, working in unison, day after day, year after year, for generations, to build something they would eventually bury. It makes no sense in our modern context, but for them, it was paramount. This wasn't a structure to live in. It was a place of deep ritual, a cosmic observatory, a historical record. And then, it was intentionally erased, not destroyed, erased. The backfilling process itself was an undertaking of immense proportions, millions of cubic feet of material. This wasn't a sudden decision. It was a sustained, organized effort. For centuries, they meticulously covered their sacred site, layer by layer. Why commit such an extraordinary act of self-effacement? What secret was so profound, so dangerous, that it had to be hidden from plain sight? Mainstream archaeology often attributes the burial to a shift in religious beliefs or environmental changes. But those explanations feel insufficient. They don't account for the sheer scale of the effort. A shift in beliefs doesn't typically involve centuries of organized labor to bury a temple. Consider the possibility that the act of burial itself was part of the ritual, a final, desperate act of preservation, or perhaps concealment. What if the message wasn't meant for everyone? What if it was for a select few, or for a specific time? The excavators, led by Klaus Schmidt, carefully removed the earth, layer by layer. They found that the backfill was not random debris. It contained tool fragments, animal bones, and even small, deliberately placed artifacts. It was almost as if the burial itself was a final offering, a time capsule, a message encoded not just in the carvings, but in the very act of its entombment. The question is, what were they trying to protect? What knowledge was so potent it had to be locked away for millennia? The official story tells you that Göbekli Tepe was abandoned, that the people moved on, embracing agriculture. But read the evidence again. They didn't abandon it. They buried it. They invested just as much effort in hiding it as they did in it. That tells you something important. It tells you this wasn't an act of neglect. It was an act of profound purpose. And now, after 12,000 years, we have uncovered it. But have we truly understood its message? Or are we simply repeating the mistakes of those who came before us? The cycles they warned about, the cycles we refuse to acknowledge. What if the very act of unearthing Göbekli Tepe has unleashed something they desperately tried to keep hidden? What if the warning wasn't for the future, but for the present moment, right now? Has unleashed something they desperately tried to keep hidden? What if the warning wasn't for the future, but for the present moment, right now? This question haunts those who spend their lives among these ancient stones. You stand amidst the silent giants of Göbekli Tepe. The wind whispers across the limestone pillars, carrying echoes of a world 12,000 years past. You can almost feel the presence of those who labored here. Their hands, calloused and strong, shaped these 50-ton stones. Imagine their faces, etched with purpose. What drove them to such monumental effort? This wasn't just a temple, it was a crucible of human spirit. Dr. Julia Shamoun, a young archaeologist, arrived at Göbekli Tepe in 2010. She describes her first encounter with Pillar 18 as a profound shock. It felt like looking into the eyes of an ancient god, she recounted. Her initial excitement soon mingled with a sense of unease. The meticulous burial of the site, layer upon layer, seemed too deliberate. It was an act of profound reverence, yes, but also, perhaps, an act of fear. She began to question the accepted narrative. Why would a community invest so much, only to hide it away? The official story tells us of simple hunter-gatherers. But these people understood celestial mechanics. They tracked stars. They recorded cosmic events. This level of sophistication challenges our comfortable timelines. And here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Shamoun found anomalies in the backfill material. Not just random debris, but carefully placed offerings, small, polished stones, animal bones arranged in specific patterns. This wasn't just dirt. It was a ritualistic interment, a final, desperate message. Think about what that means. They weren't just burying they were burying knowledge. Knowledge so potent, so dangerous, that it had to be locked away. Why? What could be so terrifying? The answer, some believe, lies in the cyclical nature of catastrophe. The Younger Dryas Impact event, around 10,950 BC, wasn't a one-off. It was part of a larger cosmic dance, a dance that might repeat. The official narrative often glosses over such inconvenient truths. It prefers a linear, predictable path for humanity. But the stones of Göbekli Tepe tell a different story. They speak of advanced understanding, then a deliberate retreat. A conscious decision to erase their own achievements. Dr. Shamoun observed the way the pillars were entombed. each one carefully supported, almost cradled by the earth. It was not abandonment, it was a protective embrace. She spent years meticulously documenting the layers of backfill. Each shovelful of earth revealed another piece of this ancient puzzle. She felt a connection to those ancient builders, a shared sense of purpose. Her hands, covered in the dust of millennia, touched the same stones. The very act of unearthing it felt like a responsibility, a heavy one. What if the message was not meant for our eyes? What if the warning was so dire it was better left undisturbed? The academic community often dismisses such emotional responses. They prefer cold, hard data. But how do you quantify the weight of 12,000 years of silence? You cannot. The sheer scale of the coordinated effort required to bury Göbekli Tepe is almost unfathomable. It suggests a society acting in unison, a single, overriding purpose. This wasn't a local cult. This was a civilization-wide undertaking. And yet, this part of the story rarely makes the headlines. It doesn't fit the established framework, but the evidence is there. In the careful placement of every stone, every layer of earth, they hid something, not from enemies, but from time, from us. What did they know that we have forgotten? What cycles did they understand that we refuse to acknowledge? The stones stand silent now, but their message echoes through the ages. A profound warning, buried for millennia, now revealed. And you, standing here, are now part of its unfolding. What will you do with this knowledge? What will we do with it? The answer, perhaps, will shape our own future. Will we listen to the echo of their warning, or will we repeat their mistakes? The cycles continue, and the sky watches. Or will we repeat their mistakes? The cycles continue, and the sky still watches. But for the first time in 12,000 years, we are beginning to look back with understanding. This isn't just about rewriting history books. That's the part everyone talks about, but it misses the point. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe doesn't just hand us a new past. It offers us a different future. Think about it. In 1977, the astronomer Carl Sagan helped create the Voyager Golden Record. It was a message in a bottle, thrown into the cosmic ocean. A greeting for an unknown intelligence millions of years from now. But the builders of Göbekli Tepe did something even more profound. They threw their message into the ocean of time. And we, living right now, are the intelligence they were trying to reach. You are alive at the precise moment this message is being decoded. This isn't ancient history. It is a live communication. The official narrative would have you believe these people were primitive, a stepping stone on a linear path to, well, to us. That assumption is a dangerous one. It allows us to feel superior, separate, advanced. But their minds were our minds. Their DNA, our DNA. They understood cosmic cycles that we are only now rediscovering with supercomputers. So who is truly advanced? Here's the part nobody likes to discuss. At the end of the last ice age, around the time Göbekli Tepe was buried, sea levels rose by more than 120 meters. Entire coastlines, the most populated areas of the ancient world, were swallowed by the sea. How many other sites are down there? How many other messages are waiting in the dark, silent depths? We may be looking at just one chapter of a book whose other volumes are lost beneath the waves. This knowledge isn't a burden. It is a gift. A map left by survivors. It proves humanity can face a global cataclysm, a reset, and endure. They didn't just leave a warning. They left a blueprint for resilience, the ultimate act of hope. And so, the final story isn't about stone and stars. It is about us. The builders of Göbekli Tepe faced their younger Dryas. We are now facing our own climate shift. The difference is, we have their message, their echo across the millennia. The question they buried for 12,000 years is no longer about